Who has the blood that is freest of all venereal trace for these experiments? The Department of Health went out to look for it. Well, there are two groups. One is nuns. I don't make nun jokes. Never have. Resent the accusation that I do. One is nuns, the other is female homosexuals. Lesbians, as some people, I think, like to call them, especially people who are slightly too interested in this subject, as I suspect Dr. Donahue of being.
Dude, he is... Dude, he's different. He is different. The case against the Catholic Church. This was sent to me via email. Thank you so much. Reasonably Funny Media YouTube channel. Go subscribe to them. They told me that they think this Christopher Hitchens video that they put together, a collection of various things, and they've crafted the video themselves, that I would really enjoy this reacting to it. So, again, here I am reacting to people who are following and suggesting these things, and I want to thank you. I seriously want to thank you. Thank you so much for being in my audience, being part of this community, you know, promoting critical reasoning, and of course, coming together on, you know, what we have in common here. And specifically, I am obviously saying the superstitious and things like that. You know, those are things of the old days, kind of like, you know, magic at one point used to be what most people believed. Now we look at it and go, that's superstitious. And I think that humanity's growing. So let's see where it goes. Be sure before we continue to subscribe and check the bell so that you're notified if you enjoy these, to be reacting to all these videos. You'll get notified instantly and you can join in the conversation. Comment, like, share. Here we go.
It's important for me anyway, to be able to say that I don't have to begin, as I would have if I was speaking for the church, with any apologies. We don't have a lot to apologize for. It wasn't we who framed Galileo. It wasn't we who said that God wanted the Crusades. It wasn't we who mounted the Inquisition. It wasn't we who sponsored Pavlich, Salazar, Mussolini, Dollfuss, Hitler, Vichy, Franco, and the rest of it. And it wasn't we who preached the Easter sermon saying who was responsible for the death of a mythical figure and creating ludicrous pain to real people.
Wow. What a way to open up. That is insanity. List after list after list. And I believe he's referring to Christ killers that is constantly referenced by Christians toward Jews.
In the real world, we don't have to begin by proving that our institutions and our beliefs are human, as all human institutions are, that we are only mammals, as His Holiness the Pope is only a mammal. We don't make a mystery where none exists. We say that we face the heavens and we find them empty, and that some of us, at any rate, are not alarmed to find this emptiness, and would be more alarmed to find the heavens full of permanent supervision and invigilation, and that an ethical life may be led by someone with no supernatural means of support, without the fear, if it is a fear, or the hope, if it is a hope, of celestial invigilation. America is actually the country to which people came in the most of a hurry to try and find if that life could really be lived as a society. Some of them came to practice their religion freely. Many came to escape from persecution by other religions. Some came to be free from religion altogether. And that's why the Constitution is godless and doesn't mention the word, though it was not written by atheists. It was written by democratic theists and secularists. And that's why the meeting at Philadelphia, which decided these matters and decides them still for us, was a godless one, if not an atheist one. And that's why I think modern America should be a lot more anti-religious than it is, should pay less respect, make much less reverence to religion than its mass media, to which I'm coming presently, do. Read one page of Stephen Hawking about the event horizon, about the possibility that we will soon know not where the universe originated, but where it is tended, and the event horizon to which we may all be headed. There is more to inspire awe in one page of Stephen Hawking than in any of the fantasies of Tertullian, imagining that he could go to the window of heaven when he was promoted there and look down for his consolation on the torments of the damned. There's much more to be awe-inspired by in a page of Hawking than any number of burning bushes or other such myths. Now, it could be, and this part of the motion I think I might have to admit for debate purposes, that when religion is attacked in this country, that the Catholic Church comes in for a little more than its fair share. I may say I probably contributed somewhat to that, and I'm not ashamed of my part in it. But doesn't the Catholic Church make rather large claims for itself? The Catholic Church claims to hold the keys of Peter. The Holy Father claims to have that power and to be the vicar of Christ upon earth. It is said that only through this means and this approach can redemption be achieved. These are large claims for a human and fallible and political and bureaucratic institution to be making for itself in the age of hawking. I think it's also the case that America is preeminently a country of, if not sexual license, as you might imagine from hearing Mr. Donahue. I mean, I'm surprised that you can cross the streets without copulating individuals and with dogs throwing buckets of water over them to keep the temperature down. But at any rate, a country of sexual tolerance, a country of sexual, I'll settle for pluralism, would settle for pluralism for now. Well, Holy Mother Church doesn't settle for that. Holy Mother Church makes rather strict demands. Holy Mother Church prohibits, by various edicts, ukases, statutes, and pronouncements, all forms of sex that are not specifically devoted to the outcome of procreating further Catholics, and it enforces this with a celibate hierarchy. Now, that's fine, and it is your choice, and as you say, Father, as you don't say, Father, excuse me, but presumably would, but as Mr. Donahue did say, no one has to join that church. But that church, where it can, does try and impose those standards on non-believers and non-members. And there will always seem to some people, I think, something absurd in the enforcement of such statutes, especially since we know most Catholics don't observe them, by a celibate oligarchy and hierarchy. And isn't it said, and should it not be believed, or at least affirmed, or at any rate not repudiated, that you should expect to suffer for this? That you should expect to be reviled? That you should be proud to be abused, that you will be told that what you believe is absurd, that you should be glad to hear it for his sake, that those who despitefully use you are to be expected? And isn't that a rather dignified position, a rather honorable position for the church to take? Something that even an atheist and humanist and Marxist like myself can understand and respect. But instead, what do we get? An endless whine of self-pity. Of why are they picking on us? They wouldn't say that about the Jews. An endless play on the ethnic politics and identity politics card. An endless appeal to self-pity, where you should be proud that you're in a fight for your politics and your church. And you seem instead to be resentful about it, and perhaps, who knows, a little insecure.
Dude, this guy is something else. He's relentless. Nobody does it like him.
However, for the main part of it, you only have to open a paper to see the exaggerated deference paid to every utterance of His Holiness the Pope, wherever he goes, and the extraordinary deference shown to him whenever he visits these shores and decides to grace us with his presence. As for the woman styling herself Mother Teresa, I can attest that until I wrote my little pamphlet, she had been the recipient, the beneficiary of a 25-year Niagara of 100% favorable publicity in every secular, Protestant, Jewish, and Catholic or non-religious outlet of any kind at all in the media. Only by the grace of my intervention could it not be said,
the grace of my intervention,
said when she died, that no one had ever said a single word against her. And that no one had ever pointed out that she had fawned on the Duvalier family in Haiti and said that they were the Lord's anointed and beloved of the poor. That, well, I'll get to her depredations in rebuttal, as I say I have only a minute to go, and I don't want to overrun my time or end foaming in mid-sentence, waving vomit bags and Tampax in the name of good taste and good bearing and good manners and good standards. I think I can hope to be rescued from that fate without any divine intercession. The truth of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, brothers and sisters, religion has it very much its own way in this country of ours. It's in the Pledge of Allegiance, thanks to a stupid intervention by President Eisenhower. It's on the money. It's in the opening of Congress. every day. It's at the National Prayer Breakfast. It's when the delinquent president summons his advisors and his spiritual team in order to fend off what should have been inevitable. It's when Al Gore can't bring himself to criticize the decision of the Oklahoma School Board. And it's high time that that situation was reversed and we developed a proper immunity to it and made sure that religion could only be self-inflicted. Thank you. Well, it's hardly...
Dude, that I don't know if they know what they're getting themselves into when they're debating Christopher Hitchens. I really don't think people realize what they're getting themselves into.
To convict me of skulking, to say you don't have the nerve to say what you then quote from my own book as having said. But I can't have it said of even of the Red Cross, which I hold no brief, that they take money from dictators. I'm sorry, the Red Cross does not go to dictators and ask for money. What Mother Teresa in fact did was to go to Haiti during the rule of the Duvalier family to take money from the Duvaliers, which the Duvaliers had stolen from the poor. You will remember that the life of the poor in Haiti was notoriously hard, and to make a speech in which she said that the Duvalier family was loved by the poor in Haiti and that as far as she could see, the poor in Haiti loved them back.
I have never heard of this. I've heard him in other conversations about Mother Teresa, but dang, I did not know that about her in this situation in Haiti.
Now that's what she actually did and what she actually said. And you can square that as you will with her claim to be a saint. I don't trespass on sainthood questions. It's none of my affair. But those are the facts. Again, with Charles Keating of the Lincoln Savings and Loan, who had fleeced the poor of California through a Ponzi scheme. She took a large sum of money from him and a private plane, and the use of a private plane. And when asked by the court in California to return the stolen money, said no, or rather didn't reply, having interceded in the court to say that Mr. Charles Keating was a good man and a friend of the poor. Again, these are the facts. Now, it was not said by Mother Teresa. I'll say this much for her. She didn't say, but some of her apologists did say, well, Jesus of Nazareth knocked her out with some pretty bad characters too. Sinners, publicans, tax collectors, that sort of type. Whores as well. No one accuses Mother Teresa of knocking around with that kind of type, and as far as I know, she never did. But he wasn't, if he was a real person, he wasn't shaking them down for their money. So the analogy, even if I accept the grammar or morality of it, would not hold. Mother Teresa took stolen money from the rich, money they had stolen from the poor, and she spent it on, well, we don't actually know what, because there was no audit. But we know it wasn't on hospices and on healthcare and feeding people in Calcutta, because that remained consistent. Her outfit was as poor when she finished as when she started. What we think is it went to the 300 convents she claimed to have built around the world. In other words, it went to an order that will bear her name, to the greater glory of Mother Teresa. Well, that's fine.
I mean, yeah, but, for her being the most selfless individual, creating its own, cult movement within the church, that's interesting.
Also, and not my business, but it's not the impression under which the money was given to her, is it? And finally, she was not a friend of the poor, but a friend of poverty. It's a very important distinction. Everybody knows that there is one way, and only one way, by which poverty can be cured. It involves the empowerment, as to use I'm sorry for the fashionable catchphrase, but there's no better word for it, the empowerment of women. Go to a village in Bolivia and Bangladesh, anywhere you like, any wooden spoon country you choose. Give women some power and education where their reproduction and reproductive rate is concerned, and come back a year or two later and you will see the floor has moved up a little bit away from the swamp of ignorance and filth and superstition and infant mortality and disease. And things are starting to happen. And then if you can come up with maybe a handful of seeds and a small loan, things will really start to happen. But it all depends on releasing women from their dependence on the cycle of reproduction and on the husbands who force it on them and the conditions that force it on them. Mother Teresa spent her entire life in the third world opposing any vestige of the only policy that can possibly work. She deserves to be called a friend of poverty. And she preached to the poor that their poverty was to be loved and thought of as a gift from God, that their sufferings were a gift. And she preached...
Imagine you get to a place in life where you get beyond suffering, you get beyond poverty. That's a sin. That's bad. She wants to remain in a constant poverty state for you to continue suffering that's a blessing. And you could see the theology in Christianity that would develop such an idea. Sell all you own and give it to the poor. Well, how are you going to live the rest of your freaking life? I mean, poor, I guess. Obviously, it doesn't fit well unless apocalypticism was expecting this escape hatch. We're all going to leave soon, so don't worry. Well, when you're not all going to leave soon, now what? Now we're all screwed. Now we're all going to be just living poor till we die? Like, that's what Mother Teresa practically walked away with, it seems.
To women that in Ireland, for example, one of the last acts of her life, to go to Ireland to campaign against the constitutional ban on divorce that's since been lifted by an all-party agreement. She campaigned solidly in the no referendum to say, no, a woman in Ireland who's married to a drunken alcoholic, a child abuser and wife beater may never hope to be divorced and remarried. And the Constitution of Ireland will tell this to Protestants too, because the Constitution was then applied to the whole of Ireland, and thus making peace between the two communities entirely impossible. And then in her interview with the Ladies' Home Journal said about her friend and fellow campaigner, Princess Diana, the spoiled narcissist princess of all time, that it was great that she got divorced because her marriage was so unhappy. This is, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, a return to the time of the sale of indulgences and the most disgraceful days of your church.
Thank you, Mr. Hitchens.
You take her, not me.
Dude, that guy is not liking that. He keeps going when he's, thank you, Mr. Hitchens. Thank you, Mr.
Let's put a case where I think that the church has a claim to a certain moral grandeur. The Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, because many churches claim to be Catholic, but the Roman Catholic Church takes the view that there can be no trifling with the life of the unborn, and that the concept unborn child is not a propaganda concept, but a meaningful one, a real one, a true one, and that deserves protection and tenderness. As it happens, I agree with this view for materialist reasons. It seems to me obvious from the discoveries of biology and embryology that the concept unborn child is a real one. It's not just a dialectical explanation. And it has to be granted to the church that it has made this a centerpiece of its ethic and its morality. But just as I'm not, say, a pacifist, and I can certainly imagine circumstances in which human life can be taken, I don't think that there are non-fundamentalist positions on abortion. For example, one of them is that the IUD, the intrauterine contraceptive device, is in fact a murder weapon, an abortifacient murder weapon. I consider that to be an extreme view, I must say. I think there is the possibility of common ground to be found on this if such extreme positions are dropped. I also do not believe, and cannot really believe that anybody does believe, that what is sometimes called artificial contraception, in other words, medical or chemical contraception, is the moral equivalent of abortion, and thus that really all forms of contraception are murder also. So you have my reservations as well. Now take the position of Mother Teresa. She's given the Nobel Prize for Peace. She's never done anything for peace, never claimed to do anything for peace, and actually never said anything about it either, but she accepts the award. Another occasion, by the way, where I'd like to know where the money went, but never mind, you can't just take the money at Stockholm. You have to make a speech about, and it has to be about peace. And I have the speech, and Mother Teresa in that speech says, well, the greatest threat to world peace is abortion. Now, this is not a sensible view. It's an extreme view. It's a fanatical view. It's a fundamentalist and zealot view. One of the great achievements of your church used to be that it knew how to keep zealots and fanatics under control, that it was indeed a means of pacifying and disciplining that kind of force in society. But I'm afraid to say that with a great deal of secular and Protestant and Jewish help, this mad Catholic fundamentalist escaped and became a role model for the American media and for everyone in it, secular, Jewish, or Christian. And then, having witnessed this absurd rodomontade, the effective secular canonization of this woman who, as I say, was a friend of poverty, was a friend of dictatorship, was a friend of ignorance and superstition and fanaticism, and to see her adopted by the entire secular media and welcomed by all, I have to come here and explain why everyone's pounding on the Catholic Church. It's preposterous. There's no sense of proportion in this way of arguing. I'm sorry, Doctor, or I must say in the way you argue it. I'll accept as a joke what you said about Darwinism, and I'm sure you hope that everyone else was hoping, vulgarly though it was phrased, that it would be accepted in that way too. I don't think I can quite let go the idea that no one would be in any physical danger if they followed only the sexual precepts of the church, and you'll have to forgive me here. Since the church has and still does condemned even modest acts of lonely self-abuse and encourage people, well, not enjoined them to abstain from them, it's quite clear that what you abstain from under church instruction is not going to kill you. I mean, I will grant you that, but I will also think you will have to admit that you are the father, if not the mother, of a gigantic tautology. Teaching of that kind, teaching about abstention, clearly cannot lead to death from sex. But to say that AIDS is death from sex is, I think, to commit an obscenity. I'm sorry to have to say that the brothers and sisters of our society who have succumbed to that appalling disease did not die of sex or of their sexuality. And remember, homosexuality is not just a form of sex, it's a form of love. They died. Oh, that's interesting. I wondered what kind of a growl I might get there. Well, I'll repeat it then. Homosexuals practice not just a form of sex, but a form of love. If you can't live with it, I think you're the poorer. However, what they died of was a filthy virus which can and will be cured. And the clear implication of what Dr. Donahue said was that it was some kind of judgment on their sexual preference. I'm sorry I can't sit here, rather stand here and take that. I'll give you an example which you again might think was extreme, but it's not. During the Reagan administration, there was a search for blood to do experiments to find out what's happening with AIDS. The search was to find blood that had no sexual transmitted disease contamination in it. In other words, the blood of people who never had any kind of disease. And I don't think you'll find actually that in the countries where Holy Mother Church rules, and where, by the way, it does make rules for non-believers on the accessibility and availability of contraception, where it can, and divorce, in Spain, in Italy, in Ireland. It's been tried many times, it's been defeated, but you've no right to say the church has not tried to legislate for non-believers. No right at all, that's a flat lie. And in many of these countries, syphilis and gonorrhea is not unknown, even among believers. I hate to break it to you, but to those of you who...
I mean, how many times has like a pastor or like people in the church have been like some of the most wild people doing the most wild imaginable things, and yet they go into the church and they cry, "Oh, forgive me," and they're the number one people in the club on Saturday. You know what I'm saying? Getting it on.
Been in confessionals, probably know it already. So the search was on in America. Who has the cleanest blood? Who has the blood that is freest of all venereal trace for these experiments? The Department of Health went out to look for it. Well, there are two groups. One is nuns. I don't make nun jokes. Never have. Resent the accusation that I do. One is nuns. The other is female homosexuals. Lesbians, as some people, I think, like to call them, especially people who are slightly too interested in this subject, as I suspect Dr. Donahue of being.
Dude, he's different. He is different.
Well, there was a lesbian organization in San Francisco called Blood Sister, which agreed to give blood. It's pure, uncontaminated blood for this experiment. And a member of the Reagan administration, a junior member of it, went to a dinner to honor this group because if you remember, AIDS was left to voluntary initiative. It wasn't a national health question or anything socialist or totalitarian like that. It was to be left up to volunteers, this plague. And for going to the dinner just to recognize women who'd given their pure blood to help their gay brothers, he was fired because he committed an immoral act and recognized an immoral practice. Well, this is why I don't think secular morality needs to be defended from the barbaric superstitions and guilts and obscene suggestions that are made by the godly, or from the repressions and unguessable motives that lie behind people who talk and think and sound like that. Thank you. If I understood Dr. Donahue correctly just a moment ago, he seems to have come over to my side of at least the formal part of the motion this evening, since it is my contention that religion is unusually privileged in this country. by the cultural elite and the political and the intellectual and academic elite too. Now we read of a string of new triumphs, including, I think, a bad time for Bart Simpson and some kind of papist in the well of the house. I mean, isn't this all going your way? Next, you know, they'll have under God on the money and in the Pledge of Allegiance. I rest my case. It's always seemed to me quite preposterous to hear this self-pity from Roman Catholics about what actually is a church pretty much triumphant, not to say militant. I mean, look, it is, I know it's true, that there was a time when people didn't like Irish Americans and they didn't like Catholic Americans and often confused the two. But now, the Kennedy family is a celebrity family and everybody loves them. And everybody loves them, and they're your problem and not mine. But I think we can dispose of that under the rubric of, is this a great country or what, actually? Now, rather than reply to the extremely cheap suggestions made about, I mean, you can probably tell from something about me that I wasn't born here either, but was born in an island next to Ireland, a neighboring island. It was mentioned a couple of times. Rather than reply to the rather cheap assertions that were made about that, I'll reply to them in someone else's behalf, namely my friend John Cornwell, who was mentioned earlier, and I feel it's my turn to defend him since he's not here. John Cornwell is as unlike me as an Englishman as it's possible to get. He was at Ampleforth School, which is the sort of, I don't know what you'd call it here, the Loyola of English public schools. He takes his church and his adherents, he's a communicant and devout member of the Roman Catholic Church, and takes his adherents took it so nearly he only just avoided, and it wasn't by my pleading with him either, taking the vows that would have made him a priest. It is also true, and I'll restate it because it was denied in a confusing manner, that he was allowed tremendous access to the Vatican archives, and it's true because he had on his previous visit to those archives, which had been open to him before, written a very stern and rather brilliant book in defense of insinuations made against the Church and against the polity in Rome that it had murdered the previous Pope. You may remember there was that outbreak of surreptitious reporting at one point. John Cornwell put all that to rest with the help of the archives. That's why he was trusted to do what he did about Pope Pius, and that's why what he has found is so annihilating, and why it's so dishonest not to pretend that this is a crisis for those who believe that the Pope is or was or could be the Vicar of Christ on earth. Because here's what this Vicar of Christ did do, and I'll mention only a couple of the things. But this Vicar of Christ did tell Heinrich Brüning, the leader of the Catholic Center Party in Germany, to dissolve his party, to give up having a Catholic Center Party and to join and vote for the accession of the National Socialists and of Hitler specifically as Chancellor. This Vicar of Christ on earth also did make it a mandate that every German bishop celebrate Hitler's birthday every year from the pulpit. It is a tremendous testimony, it seems to me, to the unease with which the cultural elite approaches church matters, that to this day, I haven't read a review of this book or a discussion of its incredible findings. You have not lived, ladies and gentlemen, if you believe in the dialectical principles that the good father was kind enough to reiterate to us in his opening. You have not submitted yourself to a dialectical test as Catholics, and I gather there are some of you here. If you have not exposed yourself to John Cornwell's book, I'm closing on my time. The big difference between us is this. It's nothing to do with the particular depredations of Rome. It's certainly nothing to do with the particular depredations of Bob Jones University. And like I should perhaps say for myself, and as I could also say for John Cornwell, that he and I have both opposed very strongly British policy towards partitioned Ireland, which involved writing anti-Catholic laws into the statute books. We've both opposed the laws in Britain that say that, for example, no member of the royal family can legally marry a Roman Catholic. And we both opposed the Guy Fawkes celebration, which celebrates the lynching of a Catholic, and so on, and the strain of vulgar sectarianism that is and remains in British imperial life. And I've written myself, I was actually the first to write about the connection between Ian Paisley's thuggish, murderous sectarianism and the Bob Jones University's down home racist version of it. So it was particularly nasty. But since Mr. Donahue, I do know, reads my stuff. Don't know why, but I know he does. For him to give you...
Dude, he's so wickedly quick with it. Ladies and gentlemen, I love Christopher Hitchens. We're at the end of this video here. I literally appreciate all of you. Go subscribe to our friend's YouTube channel. I'll put the link to this video in the description. Reasonably Funny Media. Thank you for the recommendation. Subscribe, check the bell so you get notified. Like it, comment down below what you thought about this total wipeout of the Catholic Church. And until next time, see you then.